What a waste of time if we don't pull this off. You know, these guys have said, doesn't matter if you win or lose. There's never been a movement like this in the history of this country. I say it matters to me whether we win or lose.
Well, many political experts argue Trump's challenge of the electoral process is a brilliant move, but many others are saying it's just a desperate Hail Mary. Joining me to discuss, Paige Pate, Heather Higgins, John Burnett, and Steve Rogers. And I want to start with you, Heather, because you wrote an article entitled Why Trump's Wait and See Was Brilliant. You think it's a brilliant move?
Yes, absolutely. If you think about Trump's entire raison d'etre for his campaign, it's that he is the guy who is standing up for the little guy, for fairness, for their finally not being screwed over by the establishment and by the political classes and by the rigged system. And, you know, with WikiLeaks coming out and the videos and all the rest of it, this has only reinforced that. 41% of voters now say that they think that things are stacked against them. If he had said, in the context of that debate, that he would have just accepted it, it would have been read as, not that I'm abiding by the rules of elections, including contesting elections. It would have been read as, I'm conceding, so therefore you can go ahead and cheat because there's not going to be any check on your cheating. And his voters would have felt incredibly dishonored and disrespected by that. By saying instead what he has said, he's got masses of earned media, which is how his campaign thrives. And every time the media does this story, what his voters hear is, I'm standing up for you. We will follow the rules, but those rules include contesting elections that are not fair.
Right. And
people ought to know that we are going to be checking if they do try to cheat.
But the other side of the equation, John, are people who may not vote for Donald Trump. Do they feel that, according to the political elite and the media, that this is somehow going to nullify or sort of delegitimize the outcome of this election, and to the overarching theme in the media that this has never been done before, it's unheard of, and to a degree even unpatriotic?
Well, Trump has written The Art of the Deal, right? So he's in the process of writing The Art of the Real, because he's mastered earned media, to your point. But, you know, Trump also knows that he's slipping in the polls. And slipping in the polls on the other side might be interpreted as, you know what, we don't really need to come out and vote for Hillary because we're really not excited about the candidate.
So you're saying part of this is psychology, some form of a head game.
Right.
Is it the head game to get his folks out, or a head game to keep Hillary's people home?
I think this is a great GOTV effort for Trump. He needs to appeal to his base to say, you know what, we need you at the polls, not only to watch the polls, but you know what, this whole thing might be rigged. So we need you to come out. We need you to stay engaged. You know what? Because he doesn't have a ground game like Hillary. So,
what do you make of it, Steve?
Heather's article was brilliant. It really was, because she touched upon something that Donald Trump has been touching upon, is about trust for our government. When he talks about rigged and he talks about the lack of confidence and trust, there's no longer any trust and confidence in the FBI, not in the Justice Department, not in the White House. There is a total breakdown in trust.
If we don't trust the outcome of the election, what happens to democracy in general? What's the next step?
I believe that once the election is certified, and that's what he's talking about, he's going to go along with it and say, look, this was a fair election. Remember what Al Gore did. Al Gore today, I mean, is even speaking about how he really should be the president of the United States. Donald Trump is going to accept this at the right time.
Right behind
him.
Yeah,
I mean, he went away kicking and screaming. I want to get back to you 1 second, Heather, but let's bring Paige in. Paige, what do you make of it? Is this a brilliant move on Donald Trump's part for many reasons, or is this something that's undermining democracy?
Well, I think from his standpoint, it was absolutely a smart political move, because he recognizes, and I assume his campaign advisors recognize, that there are a multitude of ways to challenge an election, because our state laws are incredibly inconsistent about how you bring such a challenge. So it could take a long time, a lot of money, and a lot of effort if you challenge a vote in, say, 1 state, 2 states, even 10 states, because all of the procedures are different. Some, the courts will resolve it. Some go to a particular board. Some the governors resolve. So even if he files a complaint, challenges 1 state or 2 states, even without solid evidence, it could still gum up the network, throw a wrench into the system, and really cause some grief.
But do we want that, Heather? Do we want a system, to Steve's point, that already has razor-thin credibility among the American public to even have less credibility? In other words, what would the margin of defeat have to be before Donald Trump takes one of these avenues of saying, hey, you know, I want to appeal it or protest it?
You know, recounts have been a long part of the tradition of keeping elections honest and trusted.
But if the number was 4% margin, 3%, I mean, where's that magic number that you say, hey, that's enough to have that recount?
That will be up to the Trump campaign, but I think realistically he's not going to want to waste money. We know that he has run the most frugal campaign in history, so he's not going to want to waste a lot of money on lawyers and recounts unless he thinks that there's a chance of getting something out of it. What I want to say, just to the point that the media trope that is being driven by the left is, oh, he wants to break with tradition and change how we do laws. If you look at the pattern of Trump speak, which we've now been observing for a year, it starts with this headline-grabbing, bold statement that makes everybody go, is that what he really means? And then he always backs off. And if you look at when he backed off, he said, I would accept a clear election result, but it would also reserve my right to contest or file a legal challenge in the case of a questionable result. And always, I will follow and abide by all of the rules and traditions of all the many candidates who have come before me. Who would disagree with that? That's somebody who's playing by the rules. He's just using the rules as they exist.
And yet there's an article that more than 20 Republican governors and top statewide officials are rejecting this entire rhetoric, including this quote, this election is not rigged. It is irresponsible to say that it is. South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Well, you know, there's a lot of people hedging bets on local races. So they're trying to create some distance between themselves, as you know, from Trump, to make sure that they continue to engage voters. But, you know, like you said, Trump is focusing on a way to get out the vote. Trump is also trying to make sure that, you know what, despite the voter turnout, despite how the election turnout will go, we need to start making sure that our republic is held accountable.
And Sheriff Clark talked about pitchforks and torches, and you mentioned, Steve, Donald Trump asking on his website you can actually sign up to be an election monitor.
Yeah.
Are you developing a militia, or you know, how do you handle that, and do you stop the people who are going to obviously be angry if Donald Trump loses, no matter what the margin? There are going to be a lot of people out there who believe it's rigged, they're upset about it, and they're going to want to take action. Where do we go from there?
The action they should take is within the framework of the law. Here's how you become an election monitor. Get in touch with your local committee, a Republican committee, and become a challenger at those polls. We cannot allow people who are way, way out of line to take control of this country, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. This is a civil country. Donald Trump is going to lead us down a civil path.
All right, Paige, you know this stuff inside and out. How do you see it? How do you see it playing out? And we know there are so many different options, but again, if the polls have Hillary Clinton at 6.5%, no one believes that's real because of the enthusiasm gap and perhaps the embedded bias of these polls. Nevertheless, you sense from some Republicans that there could be a defeat for Donald Trump in 18 days. How do you see it playing out from there?
Well, here's the key, Charles. I think for there to be any challenge to a particular vote in a particular state, it has to be close. So I think the Trump campaign will need to sit back, let the election proceed, and if they have a legitimate challenge in one state, two states, focus your efforts there. I mean, in some states, if it's close enough, there'll be an automatic recount. But in those states where that's not automatic, you may want to file a legal challenge there. That will take time to sort through. There's always the possibility, like what happened in Bush v. Gore, where the other side made a challenge to the recount that was requested by one side. So once it goes into the court system, this whole thing can take a lot of time.